Welcome to Promote, Profit, Publish. We have another really great guest today, but before we get to him, I want to remind you guys to go over and leave us a review. I know you're listening, so go over and say something nice about us. And don't forget to go over to YouTube and leave us a review over at Superbrand Publishing as well. So today's guest is a little bit different. I found him over on LinkedIn, and he works with startups. His name is Devin Miller, and he established his own startup while earning a law and MBA degree at the same time. Did you do that at the same time? Woohoo, he's a smarty. Since then, he's set up several more startups, and he enjoys every minute of it. It's truly his passion. He has a passion for new business models and the prospect of a business startup always making his heart race, and that's great to know. I'm an entrepreneur who, he says he's an entrepreneur who also is a patent and trademark attorney. He's obtained several degrees, including a law degree and a master's in business administration, and he has a degree in electrical engineering and Mandarin Chinese. My gosh, how many degrees do you have total?
I have 4, so I decided that 4 was a good number to stop at.
Okay, I agree. I actually stopped at 2, so I'm very jealous at this point. When did you have time to do all that?
I guess we make time for the things that we want to do, so I don't know where the time came, but figured it out and got them all done.
So why the interest in Chinese? That's really was that related to business? You saw a lot of the business moving over there, or just something you've always wanted to do?
No, it was more related. So I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. You serve missions for their church, so I happened to serve in Taiwan for a couple of years. Learned the language when I was over there, and then came back and picked it up as a second degree while I was doing electrical engineering.
All right. Very good. I'm actually in Utah, so very familiar with the LDS community.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit today about copyrights and I think software, setting up software, what you need to do to protect yourself, because so many people are out there developing new things. So my audience is primarily book related. So talk to us a little bit about copyrights and why those are so important for your books.
Yeah, so give you the kind of the background. Maybe I'll just walk through intellectual property of the 3 kind of main spots. Just give you that really quick overview to kind of set that up. So you have kind of the 3 are going to be patents, trademarks, and copyrights. And so I'll jump to your question just a sec. But patents are basically looking for products or something that has a functionality, a utility to it, something that does something. So kind of think of an invention as under patents. Trademarks are going to be for your brand. So if it's whether it's a company name, a logo, name of a book, or name of a publisher, anything that's going to be anything branding wise, it typically falls under trademarks. And then copyrights are going to be under creative. So as you mentioned, books, movies, podcasts, recipes, blogs, all those kind of things, or photos, videos, anything of that nature, you're going to be creatives that are going to go under copyrights. And so now getting more to your specific question as to why you look at copyrights. So copyrights are a bit different than patents and trademarks in the sense that you get some inherent rights just as soon as you create the copyright. So you record the podcast, you get some inherent rights to it. You write the book and publish it, you get some inherent rights. So as soon as you make the creative work, you establish your copyrights to that, or your rights to that work via copyrights. The thing that a lot of times you'll want to do or to be able to point back to is, let's say you want to protect your copyrights, right? So you write your book, you don't want somebody ripping it off, copying it, or using it as their own, or same thing with any other movie or pictures or whatnot. You want to establish the date that you came up with it, or the date that it was actually created, which can be sometimes easy if you happen to have a podcast and it tags it via the date that you recorded it. You can show that. Other times it's a bit more difficult. When did I take that picture? Maybe it was tagged, maybe it wasn't, or when did I start writing the book or finish it? So a lot of times you'll register copyright, and it actually goes with the Library of Congress, that you'll register your copyright so that it helps to establish that date. And it also puts kind of people on notice. When you register it with the Library of Congress, then others know that you've created it, what date you created it, and then it's harder for them to say, I didn't know, type of a thing. So that's generally why you go after copyrights. And then it gives you the ability to go and stop others from knocking it off or copying it or plagiarizing it, or otherwise gives you more recourse to that. So I think that maybe answers your question.
It does. And maybe you can bust a myth. I think it's a myth.
Okay.
But I have a lot of authors when they come to our company tell us, oh, I just mailed the manuscript to myself. That's all I needed to do. Talk about that, because I always tell them I don't think that really covers you.
Well, I put it as better than nothing. So if you want to mail it to yourself, sure. I mean, it gives you some idea. Does it stand up in court? There's a lot of questionable as to, is it time stamped? Is it dated? Did you open it? Did you reseal it? So it's better than nothing, but it's a lot better and copyrights are fairly cheap to register. You can register
Yes.
them for $200 or $300 typically. And so, for that amount of money, if you're looking at, typically I'll give the startups or small businesses the two guidance. One is if you're saying, I don't have the money, or I'm a starving author, so to speak, or something of that, and I need to put all my resources to getting my book or whatever out, then I'll probably say then it makes sense to spend that money elsewhere. If you're getting some notoriety or acclaim, or you've got a following, or you've written a book before, and now you're writing your second one, or doing something of that nature, you're better to spend that small amount of money to actually do it right, get the dates defined, make sure that you're putting people on notice. And really mailing it to yourself doesn't do much of that. It's, again, better than nothing, because you can kind of point to something that shows somewhat of a date, but it's pretty questionable as to whether or not it will actually work.
Okay. Was that a practice in the music industry? Because these people came from the music industry and sounded like that's something they used to do. Is that correct?
It's always where myths start is always hard to pinpoint. I think it more started with patents, because it used to be, and the U.S. has now changed in about 2013. Used to be that it was a first to invent, means whoever invented something first, as long as you could prove it, had the presumptive right. So a lot of times you'd have inventors that would do the same thing. They'd mail a write up of their invention that showed all the details, and they'd try and do that. But then US moved to what's now called a first to file, means you have the first person to file on an invention has a presumptive right. So that myth is completely busted, that it doesn't work for patents at all. But I think it kind of spread from patents over to copyrights, and then people there's a lot of floating on the internet that people read and think is true. And so kind of started at patents, migrated over to copyrights. Not a real great idea on anything. I guess if you're not going to do anything versus doing that, you might as well do that, but I would never rely on it.
That's good. That's great advice. Because if you end up in court, I don't think they even look at it anymore, do they?
It's if you're at that point, you're on your last leg, trying
Yeah.
to make some sort of a case, but you don't want to be. That's not where you want to be.
Cool. All right. A lot of people out there are developing software, and talk to us about, is that more difficult? How, not the actual making of it, but getting something like that approved? Because it seems like to me like software would be pretty easy to steal.
So the software is an interesting animal, and it kind of splits the deck between copyrights and patents. So if you're to look at just the actual code, so whether it's a book or a software code or whatever, what actually you type out or write out, that's protected under copyright. So if you're worried about people literally copying and pasting your code, you can protect that fairly easily under copyright. So that stops people from just literally copy and pasting your code. But if you're saying that, that only does you so good because you can fairly easily design around or rewrite the same code in a different way to get around it. So copyrights give you a minimal amount of protection, but typically software much more falls under what would be patents. And patents protect more of a little bit higher level. So you're not down to the code level, but rather you're down to functionality. So what the software actually works. So I have 5 steps, and it gives you these 5 instructions, and it accomplishes these 5 things. And that's kind of the level that you get with patents. And as far as protectability on software, it kind of, the pendulum swings as with all right, or a lot of the legal system. You'll get at some points it's more difficult to get software patents, and they cramp down on it, and you get some bad court cases, and then it will kind of swing back to the right where it's a lot easier. Right now, you're kind of in the middle, where if you have a reasonable software device or software program that you're trying to protect, you can get patents on it. And I work with everything from startups, small businesses. I've worked previously with Intel and Amazon and Red Hat and some bigger software players, and they fairly regularly get or file on and get software patents. So it's still one that's fruitful, but you do have to. The only thing I would caution people is what people sometimes will try and do is they'll try and take something that's well known out there, adding 2 + 2 = 4, something very simple, and just stick it on a computer and say, well, I made a software or program. Now it should be patentable, right? And so that's kind of the threshold, that it has to be doing something more than everybody else has already previously done, and now you're just sticking it on a computer. But if you can kind of meet that bar, software, a lot of times it can be protectable and defensible.
So if you have a great idea and you wanted to go explore, has somebody else already done this? How would you go about doing that?
Um, few stages. One is Google's Google's a great place to start, just in the sense that you might as well go out and Google if somebody else done that, and
Hmm.
that's at least do a little bit of homework, beyond just doing a simple Google search. The next one is you can go to what's called, I think it's patents.google.com, and you can do some simple searching. So you can do a little bit of searching on your own, see what's out there, use some keywords, and kind of see what pops up. But if you're getting really serious, you're probably going to or end up doing what's called a patent search, and you'll have an attorney that you'll sit down, describe your invention or your product or what your software will be, and then have them kind of go do a more formalized search that can give you an idea of what's already out there, what the landscape is, what others have done, and if it looks like yours has already previously been invented by somebody else, or if it looks like it's open for to file a patent on. So kind of hits those stages. Start out doing your homework, doing a Google search,
Hmm.
maybe do a little bit of patent searching yourself. But if you're going to invest some serious dollars, you're really trying to get something going, you're up and invest a lot of time and money, you're probably worth doing a patent search by someone, by an attorney that can decipher and know what to look for a lot more.
So I think this is where some people get confused these days about software too, is, we used to get these software things inside of a disk and now they're all on the internet. How do you
Sure.
tell on the internet if it's something that yours is exactly like someone else's? How would you differentiate if you're just an amateur with a great idea?
Um, yes, no. I mean, it is a little bit of guessing. You're going to see what is, and some companies are better than others. Some software programs, you can get into a lot of the nitty gritty details, and they provide a lot of online documentation, or you can download it and try it out. Others is a little bit more of a black box, to where you don't really see what's going on in the background. You just figures it, you put an input in, and it does something for you, and it gives you the result. But you're gonna have to just try and fill in the blank. For those ones that it's more of the black box, you're gonna see what you can that's out there. What information is trying to start to fill in the blanks. It looks like, I think I could do this better than that software. I didn't do this differently. It'll be cheaper or more efficient or something of that. You kind of identify the areas or the spots where you think that will make your competitive advantage. So a lot of time we're saying, hey, this is why I don't like this software. This is what this software doesn't do very well. Then you're going to identify that competitive advantage and see. The other thing you can do is, let's say you find software, it says, well, it's at least close, or maybe doing the same thing, I can't quite tell. You can then go look up the patents for that company or for that, or, an individual, and see kind of what they've already been doing, or if they filed any patents and protecting that. And a lot of times patents will give you a lot more detail, because you have to be more detailed when you write them up. So it kind of gives you another way that you can identify the software online. If you can get a whole bunch of detail, great. If not, go look at their patent filings, see if you can garner any more detail. If none of that works, then you're going to have to just a little bit roll the dice, or say, I think we're different. I cannot be 100% positive, but it appears to be different. So let's go forward, or not.
Hmm. At what point for people, because I've seen people that have written whole software programs.
Hmm.
I had someone run one by me about 2 years ago. At what point do you go out and say, I mean, I would think you would research it and then develop it, not develop it and then research it. Where's the point there where you say, okay, my idea, I don't see it out there, I'm going to do it?
Yeah.
Does that make
Uh,
sense?
it makes sense. It's not. It's a simple question. The answer is not quite so simple. Um, it's a hard one with startups and small businesses, because at one point you can research yourself to death, and sometimes you spend more time doing research than actually just seeing what, getting the product up and running, and or you talk yourself out of it when you may have something there. So sometimes research can be a killer And on the flip side, you get, startup or somebody that will start something out. They'll get it all. They'll invest a lot of time, money, and effort, only to find out that somebody's already done it, or they have a patent on it, or it's already been created. And so there's kind of that middle of the ground, middle of the road, where I would do some initial research, kind of see if I can see anything out there. If not, then get going on it. Because I would say more often than not, the problem with startups is, a lot of people have great ideas, but the execution is where it counts. And so if I were to err on one side or the other, I'd probably do a high level research, spend a few hours. If I couldn't see anything, I'd get going, get it out in the marketplace, see if it, if it's viable, if it'll make money, and then try and, do as much as you can as you start to see that people actually want it. Because the other flip side is that a lot of times you'll get people that think, every inventor or every individual thinks their idea is a great idea, right? We all
right.
that being some of them are great ideas, and some of them work very well, and others I'll have 5 ideas before I get into work in the morning, most of the time, all 5 of which, if I spend 5 minutes thinking about it, probably aren't the greatest ideas. But so you have to, but a lot of times if you do have an idea, my general rule is if I have an idea that I really like, I'll write it down, put it aside for a week, and then pick it back up. And if I still think it's a good idea at the end, after a week, then I'll put more time and effort. And if I get to after a week, I pick it back, that was a dumb idea, that wasn't worth investing, then I won't. And that's kind of where I would do is get it going, figure it out, see if it works in the marketplace, and then, do the additional work beyond that. But that's generally what I see.
That is so funny. That is the exact formula I use when I write books. Is I will lay them out on little cards, index cards on the floor, and literally walk over them for a week, changing where everything's at. And so it's amazing how similar all of that is. So on the, I'm just really curious because you stoked my interest when you said you always think your idea is a good idea. I remember talking to a metallurgic engineer, I think, and having him tell me all about his invention, and like literally my eyes glossing over. You probably would have appreciated it being an engineer, but how do you get to the point where you can describe for marketing purposes what you just did without killing people with boredom? Do you any ideas on that, since my people are so creative?
For me, it always goes back to if I can tell a good story and paint the picture why somebody would want it. So usually if you can describe, say, here, give them an actual scenario. So here's what, whether, and it's a lot the same as whether it's a book or a story or, a business that you're building a brand around, or a patent, in a product. But it's really, if you can use a story or a situation, say, here's what, why this makes sense. And so, one of the companies I'm working with now is doing with wearable diabetes monitors.
Oh.
And so that one is going to, non-invasively, you don't have to do finger pricks, and it's more of like a wearables, a watch, only a lot more technology under the hood. But, that sounds cool, but I could bore you with all the technical details of the types of sensors they use and all the analytics and the math and everything else. And if you're an engineer, you'll probably find that interesting, but for everybody else, eyes are going to gloss over and you're going to lose it. But if you were to start to say, wouldn't it be cool for all those people that are more, doing diabetes monitoring, if they don't have to prick their finger anymore, if they can, and not only that, right, they can wear, have a watch that they can tell them at any given time where their diabetes is, and if they're controlling it well, or if they're about to enter an episode. Kind of painting that picture, you're like, oh, that's cool, that makes sense. And I would want one of those if you have diabetes, type of a thing. And that's a lot of times where if you can kind of paint that picture and put it on a level of how this is practical application, why people would like it or why they'd want it, then it kind of bridges the gap between too technical or eyes glossing over, right, versus a marketing idea.
That is so great the way you just described that too, because I'm sure anybody you're talking to that has pricked fingers is, not happy about having to do something like that. So that, you guys, I hope you heard that example, because that was fantastic on it. So you put a lot of startups together with investors, right? Is that correct? What are some
sorts of different ways I've structured, but yeah, some of them have been invested.
So what do startups need to know when they go into it? When they hire someone like you, should they already have some things in place that make what you do a lot easier?
Oh, That's a good question. It's a hard one because every business is different, right? So some businesses I've been a part of, we didn't take any investor dollar because it didn't make sense. So I think one of the, I don't know, myths or misconceptions is I always need to go get investors. And sometimes you don't want investors either because you'll lose control, or taking on money or comes with, obligations. And so,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes when you're saying, can I bootstrap this? Can I get something out in the marketplace that I don't need investors? And yeah, it'll be a little bit slower. It'll take a little more time and effort, but money doesn't solve all problems in the business world, even though everybody thinks it does.
That's true.
Um, for the types of businesses, it does mean need investors, and a lot of times that's hey, this is going to be an expensive endeavor, or I don't have the funds, but it's going to be more. It's going to be more than I need to, or I need to get it to market quickly because it's an ever evolving thing. Those type of things. Investors, they're going to look at, do you have a good plan behind it? So you got, when you go into any type of investors, you're going to have more than just the idea stage. You can't just say, hey, got this great idea, and then they're going to say, okay, do you know what the size of the market is? Well,
Right.
no, but it's big. Or or the worst, one of the worst lines is yeah, it's a $20 billion market, and if I just get a 1% of that, think how much money you'll make. And it's true, but it's a terrible, investors is a terrible line because
Yeah.
it shows that you don't have any plan. But if you can go in and say, hey, I've got this product or this invention or idea or this book or this whatever, and here's the market. But not only that, here's how I'm going to approach the market. Here's my plan of how we're going to penetrate it, why we're going to be different, how we're going to hit the verticals of marketing and sales and actually making the product or writing the book. And you go in with that type of a plan, that gets you much farther, because a lot of times investors, especially earlier on, are going to be investing as much in the individual as they are in the business. And so if they're confident, you go in and knock their socks off, hey, I've got this thought through, I've got everything in place, they get that confidence, they're a lot more likely to invest in you. Versus you can have the world's best product and idea, but if they have no confidence that you can execute it and you have no plan and that, you're going to have a hard time getting it. So that would be the one thing. If we were to jump over to copyrights and trademarks and patents, that again is situational. A lot of times copyrights, you don't necessarily have to have that in place for investors. But it really depends on what you're saying is your novelty, or what's the nugget for your business. Meaning if you're putting all of if your business is really centered around innovation and bringing out a new technology, they're going to want to make sure that proprietary technology is protected, or at least you have a plan for, if I get investor dollars in, a rock solid plan of how I'm going to protect it. Same thing, let's say you're building a brand and you're saying, hey, we have this great plan of marketing it and launching it, and we got a great story to tell. Everybody's going to resonate with it. Then you better make sure to either have that trademarked, or make sure that you have a plan to trademark it, or how you're going to protect it. And same thing with copyrights. You're going to go and invest a whole lot of time and effort to doing a book, and then you say, okay, now what is your plan to make sure people don't knock it off? Well, I'm going to hope that everybody's a good neighbor and doesn't do anything. You're probably got an issue. So that's kind of things to investors often look for.
That's really great. You brought up a really great point there, though, that most of the time they're investing in you. So what kinds of things are they looking for?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what stage. If you're a solo person, that you've got a plan you've identified for the individuals that you need on the team. This is the type of people I need. This is what the skill sets will need to be. This is what I'm going to need to pay them. And here's my plan of how to go about and get those type of people. Mm-hmm. If you're a little bit farther along and you already have the team, then you're going to say, hey, we've identified, I can't do it all, or I don't have all the skill sets, but I've identified those other people on the team. So going back maybe just to the wearable diabetes monitor, just where we taught that through, I mean, that one takes a lot. You have to have marketing, you have to have technology, you have to have sales, you have to have finances, you have to have someone that's in manufacturing. And if you may not have all that up front, and probably not, but you as much as you can show we have a good team that's already behind this, or we have plans in place, or this is how we're going to go about getting that team. That's one. And then the other is just a lot of you can have to be able to answer the questions in a good way. So that's, if they feel like you're hedging your answers, or you don't know, and you're better to say, I don't know, than you are to make it up, because most of the time they can tell very well if you're making up an answer or you don't know. So one is do as much of your homework, have as many things fleshed out in your plan. Two is don't make up answers you don't know. And then three is to, be able to tell a little bit of that story. A lot of times investors are going to get a lot more excited if you can paint the picture, let them know why this matters, why this will work, you show that you have the answer, show that you have the confidence, and then just paint that story as to here's how we're going to turn your investment from $100,000 into $1 million, or here's how we're going to do that, and here's the plan to do it.
That's great. That is so much great information. Where can we find you if we want more information like this? This has been really illuminating. Thank you.
Sure, my pleasure. Few places. People are always welcome to just email me directly, so they can just reach out to me at Devin, so Devin, and then at Miller IPL, so Miller Miller, I as in intellectual, P as in property, L as in law.com. That's one. They can also go to the website. So on the website, I offer free strategy sessions. So let's say you are copyrights, or do I need a trademark or a copyright or a patent or anything? They can go to the website and they can actually just schedule a free strategy session. I sit down with, the startup or the small business and say, hey, do you need this or do you not need this? And I'll give them an answer usually I'll try and answer, if I was in their shoes, what would I do, or what would I want to know? And so we'll sit down, have that strategy session. Doesn't cost you anything, so you can get an idea before you actually start investing in things. But you can go to that, and that's just at milleripl.com. And they can also, just if they're interested, we do the podcast called The Inventive Journey, and it's kind of a little bit of it's both. I've done episodes kind of on myself, and those will be launching soon, kind of my journey, and I've done a few different startups. Some of them have been small, others have been multi-million-dollar startups along with that, so they can kind of get that journey. But they also can hear journeys of other inventors, because I always find in working with a lot of startups that inventing or being an entrepreneur or a startup it can get very lonely, especially if you're the person in the top, meaning nobody really gets the stresses you get. Nobody really understands the pressures, making payroll or making sure that you have deadlines and you have money in the bank and you have dealing with other people and that. So kind of the inventive journey gives that kind of, here's other people's journey along those lines and how they did it and what things they faced and everything else. So you can also check that out, and that's easy. You can either find it on YouTube under the Inventive Journey, or it's all posted on the website. But those are going to be your probably the easiest ways to reach out.
Well, fantastic. Thank you so much for being on today.
Oh, my pleasure. It was always fun to talk, and I love to share all about startups and businesses and how to protect them and grow them. So it's always fun to be on.
Well, thanks.